Howdy, y'all. Well, it's me again. I'm going to try and do this one on affidavits. Okay, notices and demands, and tie into the Federal Reserve banking system, into driver's license, and Social Security. Okay. This one's especially for snafu, the affidavit portion anyway. Snafu want to know more about affidavits and about signatures, I think. I know it's about affidavits, but signatures and affidavits go hand in hand. Okay, so let me say here. I'm not a doctor, a bar card lawyer, or judge. Absent legal intent, absent legal authority, and absent medical advice, and all that rigmarole. So I'm just a holy man and a medicine man and a lawful man at the common law. Genesis 1:26 through 28. I'm with my Lord and Savior. Okay, now that I've said all that, if you got past all that, let's roll. I know a lot of people that work this way, and many men have told me and suggested to me that are scholars I shouldn't say everything that I personally do on here, and the reason being is when and if the government comes against me, then they don't have this barrage of videos that said he says he does this and he says he does that. And I think I've been careful to say I do say certain things I do, but when you get into certain areas, it's best not to just say everything. As far as I know, to the best of my knowledge and my belief before my God, Jesus, I don't do anything unlawful. Okay, to my knowledge, I really believe I don't do anything unlawful, and I don't hang out with people who do things that's unlawful. Okay, I think I could stand before the Lord. I commit sin, and I have to get on my hands and knees and ask forgiveness for the Lord. But that's not unlawful in the world. That's with God. He has a higher standard. Rightly so. Anyway, don't let me get off too far here. Help me, Lord. Okay. A sworn affidavit of truth is a powerful instrument in the law. Okay? It works with statutes and works administratively and works in a lot of ways. But in the law itself, it's very, very powerful. So you're basically taking an oath under the penalty of perjury that what you're saying is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and your belief. Okay? So that is your truth, and it stands as fact, period, in a conversation. It takes another man or another woman, and if it ever comes to it, I would make them declare under this penalty of perjury that they're not a person, they're not an individual, they're not a male, they're not a female, okay, that they are a man, because in yours it says a man. For them to have equal standing, they would also have to be a man. It can't be a judicial official, it can't be a politician, it can't be a police officer. It has to be another man. In other words, if they're going to say it, say if it was Officer Bodinkle. Well, Officer Bodinkle has to step outside of his official capacity for whatever reason may be. If the courts find that it's relevant and they find it's okay, he's got to step out, and that would have to be a disclosure too. he steps out of his official capacity into his being a man. Under the organic Constitution of the United States, he's a man. And he's coming against you man to man. He would have to swear under penalty of perjury that as a man, he states that you're a liar. He states that your facts are inferior, incorrect, in error, that you're a liar. Now let's just say if that happened, and let's just say if it was on a very, very technical situation, and say that you now acknowledge that he's correct on this one specific thing, so 98% of your affidavit is correct. There's about 1 or 2% that isn't correct. Well, in your affidavit, if you're really smart, you put in there that you reserve the rights as a man. And under the UCC 1-308, that you reserve the right to correct any errors. And the judiciary of the United States, and you can look in American jurisprudence second, and you should be able to look under Bouvier's Law Dictionary and some things. I'd have to go back and do a little quick check on this because I can't remember everything all the time. I got a lot up here in this noggin, but some stuff occasionally I make my own errors. So double check me, make sure, keep me on the straight and narrow. Don't do it just because Brother Damon said so, Damon Chief Jones said so. Do it because he said it, and it's probably a 99% chance it's correct. But in that 1%, he misunderstood something. He had it basically correct, but there was this one little caveat to it that he didn't explain, because there's caveats to certain things too, okay? But that man would have to swear in penalty of perjury, and let's just say it was right and say you acknowledged it. Then you can stand before the judiciary, not administrative court, but the judiciary, and you can say, as I've said in here, I reserve the right, not a privilege, the right to correct my error. And I now see, as I did not before at the time that was true to me, but I see that this other man has proven a specific point in the affidavit itself, and I reserve my right to correct it, and I will correct it. And I need to reschedule a court date when I can bring the amended affidavit back. And I will not do away with this affidavit. The other affidavit, in fact, will say exactly the same thing, except it will say amended, or errors amended, as agreed in a judicial court. Enlist that judicial court, and then go back. But let me tell you what, my 39 years and change tells me this: I have never seen, that's a lot of city, county, state, and federal courts that I've been in. I've either been the state's witness, or somebody for the other side has subpoenaed me, or subpoena ducis tecum me. A subpoena with the ducis tecum means bring your records, or bring your files, bring your evidence with you. So they're subpoenaing it as well, so your records or your goods. I have never seen, and I have gone to a lot of courts and just sit in there and watch just to see what they do. When I was new to an area, I just go sit down and watch and see what they do in that area. See the judge's temperament, see how the bailiffs treat people. I see how the court stenographers do, the court managers or the case managers for the courts, or the court coordinators. They got a lot of different titles, different counties even in the same state. It's supposed to be the same position, but they call it by different names. Okay, and their duties vary. It shouldn't, but it does, and especially from state to state. So I've never seen a police officer or a citizen or somebody affected give a sworn affidavit of truth. There's different affidavits. They're basically all supposed to be an affidavit of truth, where you're testifying to a fact. Okay, but there is a specific affidavit of truth, and that means you go into your Mac computer or your PC, Windows. I've got Windows. It works better for me. A lot of people say they love their Macs. They're on a Mac attack. And I had to learn a lot of things about Macs years ago because I had to work at a help desk and I had to know Mac and Windows. Windows works better for me. Don't let me belabor that point. My buddy Jimmy, that's one of his words. Don't let me belabor. I like that word. It's one of my new words. I've never seen nobody come in against a man or a woman with their sworn affidavit. Whether it was the policeman that signed one, a special magistrate that signed one, civilian, politician, investigators, but just the regular John Doe like you and me, I've never seen nobody come against it. And you say, what is that? Well, say you go get on your computer. You type up this little thing, and at the top of it you say, sworn affidavit. That's all you got. Or if you go further, because you have more than one need, you put sworn affidavit, notice, and demand. So a lot of people have the sworn affidavit, notice, and demand. So in there they'll put I, and then they put their name as they believe it to be, and they put something for a mail service. So it usually goes to a post office box or a mail service like UPS, FedEx, local places will collect mail. Or if there's some business in the area, like there's maybe a local newspaper in your area or gas station, anybody that's a business that you can make arrangements with that will collect your mail and that you can come by and get it, or say you maybe live 10 miles up in the next city, then you say, look, if you see anything that looks really important, give me a buzz, and you pay them $20 or $30 a month for this service, or $10, or they're a friend and they got a business, and you just write care of, your name, care of, in that location, okay? And you put in there that that's their place. Now me, for example, if I have to deal with a government entity, I put my name and I put care of, then I put the physical address, but I put C/O, care of, then I'll write near, N-E-A-R, near. That's not at, that's near. There's a difference in at and near. Near is close by but not exact. And then I put the physical geographic location. And then when it comes down to the zip code, I put it in the little text box, because legally whatever's in a text box does not count. And then if it's in Texas, right after the state, like let's say Houston, Texas, then I'll write TPZ for Texas Postal Zone, and I put the parentheses around the zip. So mine would say, let's make up something, care of near 123 ABC Street, San Antonio, Texas, and then the blocks around there. So I'm not going to let them to allege that I am a federal citizen and that I am a resident of a federal district. So I take all that presumption and assumptions away. That's a whole big deep study. But anyway, some people put the notice and demand on there with the sworn affidavit. So you can go sworn affidavit, write down everything you have to say, and that's it. Or you can put sworn affidavit, notice, demand. Now, a lot of people will start off with who they are, and they'll start off with that they got a social security card when they were 13 or 15 or 17, and it's because their parents got it for them. Their parents believed that they were supposed to have this because they were misinformed or they misunderstood. And that they, from the time they were 18 to now, that they've had it under misunderstanding, under things that said in the media, etc., and it has caused them to unlawfully believe that they had to have a Social Security account. And they may point out, at least a dozen other people they know that have never, ever in their entire life had a Social Security account or a Social Security number, and that they have some as a form of self-defense, and that they're making it known that they do not agree to it and it's not voluntary, and they do it in self-defense. Then they go on and that they may have a checking account or banking account, but they do that in self-defense to live in their life, and that they use Federal Reserve notes as self-defense to provide for themselves something of value. So they're doing all these things, a driver's license, a registration for their car, etc., etc. They do all these things as self-defense. Some people at the very beginning, they'll say, then they'll come back and do another note, say, notice to all government officials, most especially peace officers, law enforcement officers, special officers, court officers, and they'll go down, it'll be a whole list of people. Be it known that I am outside of your scope of authority as a man. And if you interact with me, you're interacting with me man to man. And if you try and deprive me of my rights, then this will be used against you in a federal court of law for civil rights violations. You don't get extra rights because you carry a badge. And anyway, it gets really detailed. And then somewhere in there, you revoke your signature ab initio forevermore backward. Okay? And then you go in there and say that you've never understood what a signature lawfully meant. You never signed anything voluntarily. They, the other side, in all these documents your entire life has failed to give you a full disclosure of your options to opt out, or to tell you all the adhesion contracts that entails, like a driver's license. They don't tell you what all that means. A voter registration card. They don't tell you what that means and what you're pledging when you sign a voter registration card. I, as a man, am an elector. I am not a voter. That's why they have elections. And you have people that are electors in the election. Voters or in a corporation. You need to understand the difference in a member, a subscriber, a user. They all have different meanings. When you get your electric bill, when you get information on your Social Security cards or Social Security numbers from the federal government, you do your IRS tax forms or whatever. Someone's going to refer to you as a U.S. citizen. Well, if you are a 14th Amendment citizen, then yes, you are a U.S. citizen. If you're not a 14th Amendment citizen, then you're an American national. It's a big difference. American nationals cast ballots. American citizens are voters. American citizens are domiciled, scratch that. American citizens, U.S., you know I don't edit my videos. This is all off the top of my head. And a U.S. citizen is a voter, period. An American national, state citizen. You're a citizen of your state. And there's case laws from the Supreme Court that says this, and they make very, very, very close distinction in this. A state citizen that is an American national cast a ballot. And ballot casters are done in the open. And they actually have your name on the ballot. It's got your name, so it can always be tracked to you, and you can always verify that your name is on the list of people that cast a ballot. And there's nothing in secret. It's all done out in the open. And that's in a republic. In a republic, people cast a ballot, and they got their name on it, and where they can be contacted, and then they cast it. So there's nothing hidden. It's all out in the open. But that's in a republic. In a democracy, and you have voters, then that's corporation, that's secret. But anyway, when you revoke your signature ab initio, all the way back, forever, because it wasn't voluntary, you didn't understand what a signature means. You didn't understand, and they didn't give you all the disclosures, meaning all the words and their definitions, and that you understand it. Then thirdly, to be a contract, when you sign something, it has to be even. So if the guy or the entity, the corporation, the government, they get these 5 benefits, then you get 5 benefits over here, or thereabouts. But basically, it has to be about even. It can't be lopsided. It doesn't matter if it's exactly totally straight, but it has to be in close proximity to where the other side can go into a judicial court, judicial Title III court, and say, look at this. Any reasonable man on the street, we just go pluck a man off the street, and we quiz him and make sure he's just got some decency and common understanding, and he's a common man. And we explain this to him, and he'll say, what we got on our side and what Mr. Jones has on the other side is the same. It's fair and it's equitable. Okay. And all of our terms, phrases are spelled out. And they're not in Chinese teeny tiny type. It's where a regular man without glasses can read it. And it's said in plain language where he can understand. There's no double talk. There's none of this double meaning things or triple meanings. Do you know the word United States, according to the Supreme Court, has over 400 meanings? So when somebody says United States, they say, which one are you referring to? Is this the ones in law? Is this the ones in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence? Is this in federal codes, federal laws, statutes? What is this in? What does this mean? Is this the state's determination of the United States? Is this for purposes of Obamacare, don't care? Is this having to do with an act upon an act? there's so many laws and so many ways that it's used and referred to. There's 400. So, that's just to let you know something. And then I've been doing some more research on the word vehicle. Okay, I found several different possible meanings to vehicles. There's a vehicle, and it's described as military vehicle. Then there's a vehicle that means military vehicle, but it doesn't say military vehicle. It just says vehicle. Then there's a government vehicle that's plain and simple, government vehicle. That can be the local police car. That can be the car for the mayor or for the dog catcher or whatever. Okay, so it's whatever. Then there's just vehicle, and it means a government vehicle, but it doesn't say it. Then there's another vehicle, but it doesn't describe what I transport myself around in. Okay, it doesn't say my automobile. It isn't referring to my automobile. And you go look up the word automobile, and it's pretty self-explanatory what an automobile is. In fact, a lot of insurance companies still say automobile insurance. I have never found an insurance company that said vehicle insurance. It all says auto insurance, which is short for automobile, or automobile insurance. Okay? And it says home insurance, not house insurance, home insurance. Home is where a family is. A house is an unoccupied structure that a family could live in, but it's not being lived in. So there's a difference in a home and a house. I have a dwelling, and I am a state citizen, and I'm American national. Okay? I am domiciled. I have a domicile state. I'm a state citizen. I have an abode, which would be called a home. I have an abode, and I dwell there versus live there. They say, where do you live? Well, I dwell in my abode, which is my body, my spirit. The police ask me, where do you live? Well, I dwell in this body, wherever this body happens to be. They don't like that, because as far as they're concerned, that makes you transient. That's the word they got. It means you're moving about. But your words don't have to match their words. You can tell them you disagree with their words. I disagree with your words because they have unknown meanings to me. Or they have movable meanings, which means you can move it to a different definition. Or the definition I use, the definition you use ain't the same. So I'm going to talk to you in Latin phrases. I'm going to go look up my Latin phrases. I'm going to look up the time-honored tradition of understanding of words, not this new political science and PC, political correctness, so that I don't offend nobody or hurt nobody, and I got to get the feel-good words, and I got to say them in a specific way. No. Well, anyway, when you finish your sworn affidavit or sworn affidavit notice and demand, or you could have 4 or 5 or 6 of these, and one could attack this, one attack that, so forth and so on, or you can combine it all into one. I'll say that I have something like this, and mine's over 62 pages long, and I've been offered many hundred for it, and I have shared it with a handful of people on the understanding that they wouldn't turn around and give it to other people. I have shared it, but it's super limited. But they've also have gave me gifts of their heart, and I decided to share it with them because they've gave me, what I would consider a pretty nice gift, and I felt compelled. I felt very compelled to share this with them. In other words, they gave me a gift, and I felt compelled to give them this gift because what they gave was pretty substantial to me personally. To help with my substance, which is the food that I eat and any medicine I take. Okay, and so I wanted to help them out, and I gave it to them, but it's very, very few and very limited. But anyway, when you get down to the end, you could take it to a notary public and have it notarized, which is what most people would. And I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you not to do. But I am going to say the most educated men that I deal with, they took two other men, and it could be somebody over 18, but the way we believe, you're not a man until you're 21. Okay, that's the way we believe. Okay, so you take two men, and I would say if you was, it would be thoughtful if you took two men that were over 21 with you, and you give your signature on the paper. So you are down at some bank or insurance company or some other place that has a notary, or you go to their home or their business where there's a notary, wherever you go, irrelevant. Once you sign, you put your signature on there because this is your writing, and you understand it, and you've reserved your rights, so it is safe to be your signature, in my opinion, whatever that's worth. To get an attorney, but I think your signature is incredibly powerful. Remember, a piece of paper is all it is till it has your signature. When it has your signature, or what's perceived to be your signature, whether it is or not, becomes very, very powerful, and the lack of it gives it no power. It's kind of like having a motor on a boat, but do you put any gas in there, that motor ain't going to crank and go. It's dead in the water, as it were. Okay? Your signature is that gas. That's what gives the engine power. That's what moves that boat. This is what moves the document. This is what moves the paper, is your signature. Your signature is the gas. And in certain situations, it's the dynamite or the nitroglycerin. It really causes it to blow up, per se, as an expression. So, but after you sign this, then not your signature, but this goes on the desk, and these two good men under the tongue of good report that are 21 years of age or older, they sign their signature. All their signature does, and you put in their paper that these signatures below, these two signatures of two good men, age 21 or older, under the tongue of good report, a outstanding member in our community for eons, or however you want to put it, it's up to you, are attesting, affirming, and adhering, or swearing, depending on your religious beliefs, that the man above is who he says he is. They know him personally, and that the mark made above is his signature and seal. Signature and seal. That's because he's going to take his right thumb in some red ink, which is symbolic of blood, but not blood. He's going to take his right thumb and roll it in red ink, and he's going to do it across his last name, or if you're not a person that believes in the signature of your last name, then across your first name, like Brother Damon or Brother Bill or whatever. Okay? But if you do that, there's going to be other identifying information within there that says that you're the son of this person, that person, and that you were born or you had a nativity in a certain geographic location. According to you, to the first-hand testimony of your parents. Of course, you can't be certain because that's second-hand information you're now espousing. So you can't attest to your birth because you wasn't there. Well, you was there, but you had no cognizant thought at that time to say what date and time it was. So you're not sure when you're born. You're relying on what your parents say. A birth certificate is just that, it's a certificate or register of live birth. Okay, so that's a record, but that's a totally rebuttable record. So till a court gets your mama or daddy, the nurse or the doctor that was there when you delivered, and they swear under penalty of perjury that this is you, you're the same man or you're the same woman, and that you were born or in activity on a certain date and time at a certain location, that birth certificate really don't apply to you. It's secondhand information. So when somebody asks you, what's your birth date, you can only testify to secondhand information. What I'm telling you is secondhand. It's not firsthand information. So it's not really valid. So even when the police ask you, what's your date of birth? I don't have first-hand information on that. Well, you're not obstructing. You just told the truth. You're not obstructing. You don't know. And when you go to get a driver's license, they ask you what's your date of birth, you don't really know. And that birth certificate is just a record. They're relying on a record instead of a first-hand account. See? But anyway, these two men, when they sign their name, and this is safe for them to sign. This is one of the few times a signature is going to be okay, in my opinion, because they're going to sign their name and they're going to have their little red ink pen and they're going to do their red mark across their last name or across their mark, which could actually be 3 X's. That may be their mark. I had a grandpa and that was his mark. He knew his name, but he had a certain way that he did his X's. It was undisputable that was him. And anything he signed, that's what he signed, was them 3 X's. He had a brother that did the same thing. Anyway, I'm just saying, he signed documents for probably 60 years, 70 years. Once he become old enough, and they all had 3 X's on it. It stood good. I know people today that still got 3 X's. I know a man that just passed away about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and he signed with 3 X's. He was very smart. He had some college education. He worked in the gas and oil fields, but he always put 3 X's. He said he wasn't going to write his name out. He was just going to put 3 X's, and he could always contest it. That was him. There's nothing that makes you have to write your name out in a signature. You just write 3 X's. Look that up too. Just another opinion of mine, which we're entitled to. But so basically, they're attesting or averring or swearing to you're who you are, and that's your signature. They're not swearing to anything else. That's it. You're swearing that everything above your signature is accurate and correct, and that that the men below are attesting that they're 21 or older, they're under the tongue of good report, and they're affirming, swearing, or attesting, averring that you are who you are, and they sign into their prints in front of the notary. So the notary has 000 connection to you, the man. Now you send off to the Secretary of State in your state, and you get the apostille, okay, from the government official, okay? The government official sends an apostille. I don't know if it's $20, $30, whatever, but it's basically their affirmation or their sworn statement that Jane Jangalang is a ex officio officer of the Secretary of State's office in good standing, and that their commission expires because they're a commissioned officer of the Secretary of State, and that expires on a certain date, and that when they verify signature, it becomes a legal instrument for courts, public and private. It becomes an instrument. We're going to refer to it as a lawful instrument, but it depends on the state you say. It may be a lawful instrument or legal lawful. They may have a slat in there, legal lawful. Depends on where you're at. Depends on what the Secretary of State does there, how they carry out the duties of their office, or what their law says, or their policy or procedure, or whatever they're going by. But anyway, so now you have your document that you can take any Title III judicial court, or you can take to any proceedings. So say a credit card company's coming after you, and they say, well, you owe $40,000 and here's your signature, and they take you to small claims court. Well, you can produce your document that has the notary, and then you got the apostille attached to it, and it goes in there and it swears all these things, and you either run it in the newspaper of record, or you post a copy of it, original copy, I would say, but anyway, a copy of it, and you post it at the county courthouse. That is the house of records. You post it there. You post a cover letter with it said, this is a lawful legal notice to the public at large. Do not remove for 30 days. The presenter will remove it on the 31st day by 12 noon. Okay? So if somebody removes it, you put on there what the penalty will be if they remove it. Like there'll be a $10,000 fine for anybody that removes it, and until it's replaced, $10,000 fine. Okay? And you take that you're posting on the board, you take a copy of that and you file it with the county records. So you get a county record, and then you get a copy of that. So now you can show that you filed it with the county records. Okay? The county records has it. And you got a county record number. So it shows that they were given notice on this day and time of all these things, and that you posted it to the public out on the board, and the actual notice that you had on the board. And then you take some video and photographs, especially if you got your two good witnesses with you, that one of them can show you going up, posting on the board, and then you zoom in on it, you see what it is, and pull up some pages, for a few seconds, and show another page for a few seconds, another page for a few seconds to show that it is, and then do it all the way down to the notary and say, here's the notary. Boom. And if you want to go a step further, you can get 2 copies from the clerk, certified original copies, and you can take the clerk's seal and put on the second page. So you got your notice, don't remove this, but you put her notice on there where it shows the county case number. So you've covered yourself back and forth so many times. I had a chief of police, Chief Lima, L. Lima, I ain't gonna say his name. He told me, the more papers you present to a policeman, the more papers you present to a court, the more papers you present to any government entity, 20 pages, 30 pages, 40 pages, the more they have to go through, the more concerned they become. He did a lot of government work. I'll leave it at that. He did a lot of government work before he went into law enforcement. And then when he left law enforcement, he went back and did more government work. Then come back to law enforcement again. That's just who he is and how he is. But anyway, he said the more they do this, the harder it becomes for them. Because it isn't in a tight little box. It's not in their format. It's not in their language. Okay? If you have a jural society, like there's the Texian Jural Society in Texas, and in California, I think they got the South California Jural Society, then the North California Jural Society, and then the Jural Society at large in California, and then there's little counties like Austin Township Jural Society. They were starting a Jural Society in Iowa. I don't know if they got it done. Then there's a Jural Society down in Florida. Anyway, there's several different Jural Societies. Well, all these Jural Societies have a clerk. They're supposed to. A clerk of the record. Well, that clerk of the record has a organic seal. A Title III People's Seal. Well, if you send your paperwork to them before you put it out at the court, you can get your clerk's seal. Ding! The Jural Society. That's a lawful society of people. You know, like we the people, that's a lawful society. So they put their mark or their seal on it. Okay? So, not only do you have the government's clerk seal on it, you have the people's seal on it. And most of these people, for between $20 and $50, their Jural Society, in order to raise funds, you know, they charge a little bit more, so they put the money back to help them with their buying of books or whatever. And they put their seal on it. So with their seal and this seal, just one more covering. Okay? If you have a church that you belong to, say it's a standalone, independent, non-incorporated church, just like mine, the Sovereign Church of Jesus, then the church usually does it as a favor to its members, people that are actually a part of their church. If they're not, but they would like to register papers with the church, or to get a church signature, church seal on it, then they'll send a copy of their papers, and then that church, anywhere from $20 to $50, will put their signature and seal on it. Okay? And then they'll keep a copy of it on file, in their files, original or digitized, whatever the case may be, and then they'll send you back. In other words, you send them two. They're gonna sign both of them. One of them they're gonna send back to you. As long as you send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, they're going to send it back to you, and then they're going to keep one on their file, which I can do at my church for anybody that wants to do it. It's another little thing I can do. It's another little right of the church I can perform as to acknowledge your paperwork. So now you got the government seal, you got the Jural Society seal, and you got the church seal. A judge would have a dang hard time refuting all this. Okay? So, you made it known to the church, which is the original source of all law, come from God. Check it out. Do you not think that Adam and Eve, that God gave them the first law? What they can eat from, what they can't, that was the first law. First law in the world. Okay? You see what I'm saying? And then he gave them do's and don'ts. They broke the law. They broke God's law. So what did God do? He banished them out of the Garden of Eden. That was the punishment. That was the consequence for their bad behavior and violating of his law. And you'll find his people did all kind of stuff. Then you had the law of Moses, which is actually the law of God. Okay? More direct law from God. Then they had the law of Noah, or the Noahide laws. Okay? Still all directly from God. In the cradle of civilization over in the East and Middle East in them areas. And they eventually all migrated here. Well, the law did never go away. The laws followed, and they come to America. That's why there's ecclesiastical sovereignty in the Paris Peace Treaties and the papers in 1789. Go look up ecclesiastical sovereignty and see how it works. If y'all want to know more about ecclesiastical sovereignty and how it is a exact same authority as the governing body over here's authority. That's why you see on my church website, Sovereign Church of Jesus, it talks about we are an even realm. In other words, we can't go as the church and overlord the government. They have certain lawful duties and authorities that was given it to by the people. But they can't come tell us what to do. That's why when we issue a college degree, which I have issued college degrees to people, they can't dispute it, and they can't give it any less credence, because then that would be discrimination. So some people from me have got a college diploma or a doctoral certificate, and it doesn't say honorary. I make sure that the person has an adequate education in the determination of the church, and then they're issued that degree. Okay? And they've used these degrees in their workplace, because the workplace, especially the state, can't discriminate and say, well, that's not an accredited college. Ho, 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 you better watch out, because that's my religious degree, and you can't give it any less credence. And if you are, you're singling me out because it's a religious degree. Think about that. So this church here, my church, can be a lot of help to a lot of struggling men and women and families. And I've provided a lot of documents over the years to a lot of people. And I've not had one single document questioned by anybody. I've had some people say, well, my employer, and I say, remember, don't get in that government stuff. The man or the company that hires you to do labor, is that what you're talking about? Yes. I said, okay. I said, they've got some questions. Well, I'll be happy to talk to them. I have talked to a few people. I've described what's going on, and they said, oh, we wasn't aware. We're sorry. We didn't mean to offend you or your church or your church member here, and we're going to acknowledge their degree. Pretty skippy you are. Yep. Oh, God. I don't know if there's anything else I can say right now. My head is fried to the fried. Y'all know I got run over by a big truck back about 6 years ago. And so my energy level kind of goes up and down, and my memory kind of gets in and out. I mean to talk about one thing and I stray sometimes. But I think I got it all in. So Snafu, this was for you. And all the people that sent me the gifts, and I got a PayPal gift yesterday. You know who you are. I'm just going to call him Mr. D. Mr. D. I don't have permission to use his name, so therefore I will not. But Mr. D, thank you. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps food on the table, and that's what keeps me being able to pay my internet bills and my data plans, so that I can get all these videos out to you. This stuff costs me money, you know. I've got to charge up equipment that's electric. I've got to have standby batteries to if I'm out and about that I've got to use to keep this stuff charged up. Yada yada yada. So all this costs me money. And when somebody donates $10, $20, $50, that all goes into the feeding of me. In other words, some money I got set aside for food. If you pay for my food, then I can use some of the money I had for my food to go pay for my electric. These are fantastic gifts. I